cheer. To climates unknown did courageously steer. Through oceans to deserts for freedom they came, and dying bequeathed us their freedom and fame. In freedom we're born, and in freedom we'll live. Our purses are ready, steady, friends, steady. Not as slaves, but as free men, our money will give.
My name is Doug Ulwick. I am the president of the Historical Society of Old Abington, and I welcome you here today, May 1st. And those who are watching on cable, this is Sunday, May 1st of 2022, and this is our final program for this semester. The Historical Society of Old Abington does 6 programs a year, or did pre-COVID at least. And on the first Sundays, our fall semester is the first Sunday of October, November, December, and then we resume with our spring semester kicking in on the first Sunday in March, April, and May. This year, abbreviated season, we kicked in from March and did, April, and did a program on the DAR, which will be coming up on cable and on YouTube soon. I don't think it's up yet. We'll talk about that. But that will be viewable there. And today's topic is called Tenting at the Old Campground, about Civil War encampments, which are a big deal in Abington. So we're going to talk about that. But let's start with the way we start all of our programs here, with a salute to the flag. So those who are able, please stand and join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. So the Civil War and Abington have a very long, close, and intense tie. And we always get involved in anything to do with Civil War here. Island Grove Park and Memorial Bridge and the Arch are all here basically because of the Civil War. And a few years ago, we'll talk about in a few minutes, we started doing encampments there. Also, the building that we are in, the Dyer Memorial Library and Archives, which is also the home to the Historical Society of Old Abington, has an unusual collection of Civil War related items and resources. A few years ago, we actually preserved our copies of The Liberator, the Civil War, pre-Civil War actually, newspaper, dealing with the abolitionist movement. We have it in hard copy. That's kind of rare, but we have it. So we have a long tie to it. And coming up on the weekend of June 10th, 11th, and 12th, which is Flag Day, Founders Day weekend in the town of Abington, it's a huge event. And over the past few years, we have been hosting a Civil War encampment at Untitled Grove. And it has grown over the years, and this year you'll hear more about it. I expect it's going to be huge. So we thought it appropriate to take this final program of the season, conversation program of the season, and devote it to the topic of Civil War encampments. A bit about what they are, how they came to Abington, and what we've seen in the past and what we expect to see. It's a lot to talk about, but we have people here joining me who are qualified to help me do that. Anyway, so let me invite Rob O'Bryan up to join me here, and we're going to look at a brief slideshow that I pulled together with slides from Michelle Christian. She is the public outreach person for the Abington Celebrates group that has this that really hosts the entire weekend, has pulled together the weekend. They do Flag Day, Founders Day in June, the second weekend in June, the week after graduation, the week before Father's Day, and they do, I'm part of it, we do Oktoberfest, the weekend after Columbus Day, and we do the lighting of the town Christmas tree and the Christmas weekend in Abington the first weekend of December. Those are our 3 signature events, and as I said, Michelle Christian, I hit her up a few days ago and said, get me images. And she sent me a bunch, and I've sorted through them to try to put them in some sort of order. Now, Rob, we've met through church, we've known each other for years, but most importantly, in 2012, Abington, the old town of Abington, celebrated its 300th anniversary. And back then, the president of the Abington Historic Commission, the official town body, Robin Fernald, decided, I think almost on her own, that she was going to make sure that a Civil War encampment happened at Island Grove. And she worked to make it happen. And Rob, you were in on that effort. Is there anything you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, it was really fun. We started at the meeting with Robin, and I was actually going up for the GAR Hall in Rockland to represent them, to see what, if the GAR could kind of help. That's how I got involved with it. And at the meeting, I says, hey, why don't we, do you ever think about doing a Civil War encampment? And she goes, oh, that sounds really fun. I said, well, with the history of Abington and everything that happened here, and being at Island Grove, it would be really appropriate. And so she lit up. So then we started with the discussions and the meetings, and the question was asked, well, what do you need? And I said, well, we need a place to camp, we need some wood, we need some water, and we need a bathroom.
Oh, come on, you need ice. I know.
Oh,
you need ice. You need ice.
The police department's been phenomenal with that, too. And I said, other than that, we just kind of do what we do after that. And that's how it started. It's really kind of takes off on its own. Our members are really trained. This is with the 22nd Mass is my group. Since then, it's grown. The 22nd Mass has joined the New England Brigade, which is kind of like the umbrella group for a lot of groups. We have a lot. Mike can talk about this. He's in charge now of this, so he'll talk about this later. But the group is getting bigger, and they've come to see Island Grove as the beauty of a park that it is, and the magic of what it is to actually encamp in there. And then in the following year, we said, why don't we bring the Scouts in here too, to try to get the history of the park and the town to our youth, and let them experience what it's like to actually be in Island Grove and to be around the soldiers and to find out what's going on. And since then, they've loved it too.
Now, we haven't been consistent in every year, as I recall. We did 2012, but were we there 2013? I didn't remember that.
I don't know. I was really busy.
I think we took a few years off there in the middle. I should have done my homework on that. But when Abington Celebrates decided to start recognizing Flag Day, Founders Day weekend, and that I can speak from experience, we worked on the preservation of the Memorial Arch at Island Grove and the Abolitionist Stone, and decided to rededicate it, if you will, on Flag Day weekend. And that's when the whole idea started up again for us of, okay, let's do this up. Let's do this big. Let's recognize the history of the place. So let's jump to the slides now.
Sure.
It's just a quick overview of the different things that are involved in the weekend and the different things you might see. See if this is all properly mounted. Island Grove Bridge last year was the site of the reenactment of an actual battle of the Civil War. We'll talk about that. But the bridge itself was built in 1912 as part of the town's 200th anniversary celebration. And it is indeed a war memorial. People who are fishing on it don't know that, but...
Just a quick thing on this. When we did the rededication of the monument, I had this vision of a parade of flags coming over the bridge, with just trying to get all the groups we could to come in and do this, and it worked. It did. It wasn't as big of a group that I was hoping to get, but it was a good sized group, and it looked sort of like that. And then I found out, but then I found out with the booklet that I read in here that the original dedication, they all formed up at the GAR Hall. And they all came over the bridge with a parade of flags. And I was like, hey,
I did that.
That was good. Very good.
So, and we see the arch in the background here. Of course, they're camping. So we see tents of different configurations and whatever, spread out around the grove and in different ways. And this is the lower part of the grove near the cabin in the grove, which might actually be a battle site this year, I'm told. We'll see how that works out. I see a Confederate flag in front of this one, and that's probably why he's inside. And And they drill and assemble and go through exercises as any group in an encampment would. So there's that realism to it, the training that goes into it, and more of that. And not only do they do drills and practices, sometimes we have horses. We were fortunate that time. Sometimes they actually do a reenactment of a battle, but what's useful when you do it is to have an interpreter telling you what it is you're seeing and what's going on. And we did that indeed last year. I don't know this gentleman, but he looks like he might have fought in the Civil War. But he was good. He really gave an overview of what we were seeing, because they chose the Battle of Rohrback Bridge to enact, because the Rohrback Bridge was similar in configuration to the Island Grove Bridge. So they thought it an appropriate skirmish, I guess I'd call it, rather than full-fledged battle maybe. But they thought it was the appropriate one to do because of the bridge configurations. And I love that creativity. Adapt, but do something that is upscale and that makes sense for the location. People get wounded, of both sides get wounded, and act like they're wounded. And sometimes, that can be handled by maybe an assistant surgeon. And with all of those wonderful drugs and liniments and remedies that come in those bottles, we actually have a pharmacy downstairs in this building of antique drugs and scales and everything else. And a lot of these bottles look very familiar. We have some in the building. But if they can't cure it with that, sometimes they just cut it off. And what was interesting, and this has happened a couple of years now, there is someone who comes up and does a rather realistic amputation. They do a demonstration. It really attracts crowds. I mean, people want blood and guts and gore, let me tell you, because this is one of the most popular events of the entire reenactment weekend is let's see someone get an arm cut off. But as I said, and all too realistic. I make a point of not attending, by the way. I take a hard pass on this one, but you can see the crowd's just fascinated with everything that's going on here. So, and I noticed my publicity had lots of pictures of this. So I probably have more than I should.
It might be interesting to point out, Doug,
yes.
that Ray Doherty portrays Dr. Mary Stewart, who was a contract surgeon to the Department of the Army, and she in real life is an LPN, and she's researched that thoroughly.
So she's doing it accurately.
Oh,
yes. That's why it's so realistic. Whether I like it or not. Recruitment goes on. Recruitment, and it's fun because they recruit all ages, and the kids really get into it. They have wooden guns for them to parade around in and give them a sense of what it's like. And sometimes it even attracts the adults, like Abington's health agent, Chris Schultz. I don't know if he knows I have the shot, but anyway, I saw him at town elections yesterday. There's several shots of Chris in here. So it attracts the adults and the kids. Realistic things, a blacksmith. You needed one between horses and tools and everything else, so they got a blacksmith that often shows up. Cooking is on cooking fires. We supply the wood, and we have people in town. I think it was Nick's Tree Service last year that supplied the wood, and Tim Warner of Warner Brothers delivered it. And it's interesting because you have to get a permit from the fire department to do this, but honestly, their attitude has been, these guys know what they're doing. They do this all the time. They know how to build a fire, how to do a pit, how to put it out, how to make sure it's out. And so they might come and look at it, but generally they let them do what they do because they know they do what they're doing. But anyway, and this begins to talk about the fact that women are involved. I mean, they came in various capacities to the camps, not just necessarily to cook, but to deal with health issues again. I mean, the Sanitary Commission, which we'll talk about, was represented as well. So we get a good cross-section of the different people involved in the encampment, in the reenactments. And, at the end of the day, hanging around the campfire, you might have some music. There's an amazing group called Shades of Grey, and the Abington Summer Concert Series, who works in close conjunction with Abington Celebrates, every year has paid for Shades of Grey to come and stay at the Grove and to entertain with live music. And they're very good. They do very traditional music and music that we all know. And they come from like all over New England. I mean, it's not just like from one town. They come from everywhere to assemble to do this sort of thing. And we love having Shades of Grey there. They will be there this year. So we're very excited about that. And this was taken under the pavilion, which is now closed off with, I don't know, yellow fencing or chain link because the town has yet to put the money into to fix it. So they're afraid of it falling down. The Historical Society of Old Abington does guided tours of Island Grove during the weekend, usually on Saturday, and usually a tour in the morning, a tour in the afternoon. This is me doing a morning tour, I think a couple of years ago. But it gives us a chance to talk about the entire Grove and the history of the Grove and a little bit of the history of Abington. But in the course of doing so, we go through the encampment area as well. And how many know that Island Grove Park was at one point a cemetery? Show of hands? No, not many. Okay.
Is it Indian cemetery?
No, it was never an Indian cemetery. We never buried any Indian cemetery. Well, we did. Zerva Mitchell's buried over on, well, was buried on Progress Street, but now she's in
I heard of some that
Mount Vernon.
were dug up.
Actually, they were moved close to the house you grew up in. There was a cemetery.
Yeah.
They moved from there. There was a cemetery near the house you grew up in. There was a cemetery at the Grove, and everything, no, not everything, the headstones got relocated to the forefathers' lot at Island Grove. Only the headstones. But not an Indian cemetery. But there's still the remains of a couple of headstones there that we can point out and say this is where the cemetery was. A little known fact about Island Grove. But anyway, so the tours cover all of that. And we have a chance to talk more about the history there. Last year, working with Abington Cable, a film was made of the event, particularly having to do with the reenactments, the battle reenactments. And they asked me to do voiceovers for it. So if you catch it on cable, and there's a link, and we'll have it up on our YouTube production of this meeting, that you can see the link and watch the movie. I thought it was very well done because they talk about the actual Roarback Bridge battle and the weapons that would have been used and the artillery that would have been used and everything else. And Paul Watson, who normally does our filming for us, pulled it together, and I thought he did a great job. It took a while for him to do it, but it was a great job when it was done. So that's something that is worth watching as well, so you can see that online. So that's the sort of stuff we get involved with. Here at the Dyer Memorial Library and Archives, also, they pull out all the stops to do a recognition in kind. And the Sam Dyer room on the other side of the hall here, the display cases are empty now because they're about to fill them with Civil War related materials for the towns. The GAR books, I understand, we're going to have here as well. And there'll be some special hours, and we're actually hoping that some of the folks from the encampment will march over and see what we have to offer here. And I think we're going to be able to pull that off. But they're making a huge effort to recognize what's going on this particular weekend because it's so much a part of the history and so much a part of what the Dyer Memorial Library and Archives specialize in. Besides the history of the three towns of Abington, Rockland, and Whitman, there's definitely a focus here. The collections are all kinds of collections, but the Civil War collection is particularly notable. Merlin, am I leaving anything out on that?
The only thing...
Tell me.
The only thing that you're leaving out is to remind everyone that everyone from the town of Abington went and served in the Civil War. And when the war was over, they all returned to the town of Abington. So the people who enlisted were from the parish of Abington, North Abington, South Abington Parish, and East Abington Parish. So we are all Abington in this war, and there are two other things that, in being here and not from this part of the world, and learning about this part of our American history, that struck me as I've been learning everything over the years. And the reason why the Civil War, one of the many reasons why the Civil War and preserving the Union was so important to the people in this town was that they had living memories of grandfathers and great-grandfathers who served in the American Revolution. So think about that. 1776, 1861, it's still 100 years, but you still have this true connection to the preservation of the Union, which is mind-boggling to me. And
Because their ancestors actually had been responsible for forming the Union.
exactly,
So they wanted to keep it.
that's right,
Mhm.
and preserve it in every manner that they could. And the other thing that also struck me is how much Abington gave
Mhm.
in terms of its men to the service, and it is considerable.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So when they came home, they definitely did deserve to build that arch and bridge for themselves, to honor themselves and everyone else who fought for this. So
Thank you.
that's it.
To elaborate on that a little bit, I read somewhere, and I forget where it was. I don't know if it was in the archives in Washington or not, but Abington was the biggest supplier of men for any town in the state of Massachusetts. They supplied the most, and they also, when Lincoln put out the call for the first troops to be assembled on April 15th, the very first ones to respond was the Mass 4th and the 6th. Well, the Mass 4th were the first ones to leave for Washington. They were from Randolph and Abington, and if you go down to Whitman Center, as you go into Whitman Center, you'll see a granite block that says this is the front of the right line for the Mass 4th that assembled here when Lincoln put out the call. They were the Minutemen of 1861, and they came from here. And if you've ever been to Gettysburg or Antietam or any of the major battlefields and you see all those monuments, if you really think about it, the very first one for the country is right down in Whitman Center.
It's the busiest monument you ever want to see in your life. If you blink, you miss it. It's right on the sidewalk. There's printing on all sides about everything you can imagine. I actually did a program on like hidden monuments and photographed it for that. But yeah, I mean, our commitment was early, and our commitment was consistent, and our commitment was huge. So every time we talk about it. By the time 1912 rolled around and we were celebrating the bicentennial of the town of Abington, the towns had split. Abington and Rockland and Whitman were now 3 towns. And yet they came together to celebrate that weekend in a big way. All 3 towns had their own celebrations that tied into the master celebration. And they all had their own parades and sporting events and whatever. Because again, in 1912, the people who were then living, a lot of them were born in old Abington, before Abington split. So there was a sense memory of the old community and the old ties. That was the last time a significant celebration happened that united the 3 towns. We tried subsequently, and the interest wasn't really there to the degree it was in 1912, because that generation had gone on. So anyway, Rob, thank you.
Oh, thank you,
And
Doug.
I'm going to ask your wife to come up, Judy, and Mike Riemer, if you would join me up here. We're going to continue the discussion about some of what we can expect to see this year, some of what's going on and gone on, and some of the involvement of these two in the entire process. Judy O'Brien is a member of the Abington Celebrates committee and kind of a liaison to all of these activities. And you're also a reenactor yourself. And I always get it wrong. The Sanitary Commission, it sounds like you're cleaning toilets or something, but that isn't it.
United States Sanitary Commission.
Okay, and the United States Sanitary Commission, just give me a little overview of what that means.
Okay. It was basically like a pre-Red Cross.
Okay.
All right. And it came about because of the needs that we're seeing for sanitary conditions.
Literally,
You
yeah.
know, literally, yeah. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of wounds, a lot of injuries.
This is years before penicillin. This is years before people understood.
But, I mean, infection
Yeah.
was huge. And infection and illness really took out, huge numbers of people that may have survived from their injuries.
Right.
And so, those those things were seen that they didn't have the clean water, and so these people went into the camps. You know, it started as a civilian type thing, and then it became a
Governmental thing at one point, yeah.
you know, program after that. And it was basically from the north, you know, the Union. And although there were women or townspeople that provided services, you know,
In the South.
on the south, but not an organized group as is this. And so they would do anything from teaching about washing your hands and how important that was, about having the proper facilities for waste, you know, for food, you know, providing safe conditions for food, because I mean that's huge, you know, as far as spoilage and stuff. They would provide some of the food, like for the wounded. They would help them eat, you know, bring them some soup or whatever, some fluids that they would need. They would provide, some of them just reading letters or providing, you know, the works for getting letters or writing letters home to their family to say, I'm okay, you know,
So it
because
really-
a lot of them couldn't read.
It really was the sort of thing that morphed into eventually the Red Cross years later, when another war effort required that type of service. So it really was the precursor to all of that. And you're represented at the local encampment at least. So that's a significant part about what we see and what goes on. That's kind of cool. Thank you. And Mike, you're kind of in charge of a lot of things around here.
I'm the first sergeant of the 22nd Company D.
Yes, sir.
Don't salute me.
Sorry, I
work
felt
for
like I
them.
needed to.
I work for a
when you
living.
when you come up with that title, it just kind of inspires an immediate reaction. And I'm not a military background, but still, I probably even did it wrong. But there you go. Okay, and how'd you get involved?
Well, I actually have a friend, or had a friend, he's passed on. He traced his family tree back to his great-great-grandfather, who was in Andersonville Stockade.
Oh wow.
And he kept, I have always been involved with target shooting and hunting and black powder. I got into quite a few years ago. And he was after me to try and become a reenactor. And I was busy with young ones, and I was a Grand Knight in the Whitman KSC. And I don't have time for this now. And then he just finally wore me down when my kids were a little bit older. And my wife said, okay, just
Get out of the house.
Try it.
Get out of
it
the
out of your
house.
system. So I borrowed a uniform. I had the musket and I had the leather gear. And I went to a weekend with him. And I came home and my wife said, well, you got that out of your system now? I said, no.
It's
No,
in your
no.
system more than
It's
ever.
even worse now.
Excellent. What I'm aware of from having dealt with the groups before is that there's different tiers, different levels of involvement. There's local, there's regional. Can you explain that in terms that an audience can understand?
Yeah, the 22nd and the USSC are a local reenactment unit.
Okay.
We're not just from one town, we're from a lot of places. We have members in Maine, we have members in Connecticut that will show up when we have a reenactment.
But it's still considered a local group.
Local group.
Okay.
We are part of the New England Brigade, which is a parent organization for us, but they comprise people from different states. We've got units from Maine, New Hampshire, Rhode Island. The New England Brigade just took on a group from Canada, I'm told. And then you have a national organization, which we are part of. It's called the Mifflin Guard, and they accept groups from all over the country. And the national organization would be the one that would put on the Gettysburgs, the Antietam's,
The big stuff.
Sharpsburgs, the big
stuff.
the big ones.
A little bit of reading I had done indicated that actually reenactment started probably even before the war was over.
Yeah.
But this is really part of a more modern wave, is it not? I mean, like the 1960s?
Well, the heyday of it was basically like the centennial of the Civil War, the 1960s.
Okay.
And if you look at, I think it was the 1963 reenactment of Gettysburg, they actually had U.S. Army units in not period correct uniforms with
But they were there.
M1 Garands reenacting the events of the battle. But
A little lacking in accuracy,
Yeah.
but the spirit was there.
But they got the point across. And it progressed, and people started getting a lot more authentic.
Mhm.
I mean, you can get as authentic as your pocketbook will allow.
Good
Some
point.
of these, this sack coat could cost you up to $600, depending on where you
Wow.
get it. But it's kind of fallen off now. Politics of the last few years has really taken an impact.
Well, I heard a couple of years ago that going to the South to do a reenactment recently was not a good idea. Is that an accurate statement?
No, I've
okay.
gone to the South. I've encountered,
Okay.
obviously we encounter people from the South, and I've got some kind of funny stories, some off-color funny stories.
Okay.
But
it is cable, so.
it's it's not like that.
Okay.
They're very friendly. They do want you there, but a lot lately what you see is you'll see a lot of secessionist units will try and recruit people.
Oh my goodness.
Take off the gray and put on the blue because we haven't got enough Yankees to shoot at. So
Okay, that's an interesting way of recruitment. We don't have enough Yankees to shoot at. I don't think you hear that line around here.
no, we say the opposite.
There we go.
We don't have enough Rebs to aim at.
Okay.
But again, it's the politics. It's
Yeah.
it's a fun hobby, but some people see certain flags and
React. Absolutely, particularly lately.
instead of taking it in the historical context, it should be in.
And that's part of what we do, is to teach history.
Right.
Because unfortunately, a lot of history is distorted.
Right,
You know, and
right.
so by walking into an encampment, walking into Iron Grove was like walking back in time.
Right.
You know, and it gives you an opportunity. I mean, all these people do their research.
Right.
They are authentic.
Well, again,
As
when
best
we're
as they can.
reenacting a specific
Right.
battle.
So it's a chance to learn, to ask questions, and to see and actually absorb.
Okay. Sounds perfect. It sounds what it should be, and that's kind of fun. There's a touch of irony to this all because, well, maybe not, but Island Grove was the scene of abolitionist hearings, and it was known for that. We indeed have a stone. The abolitionist stone is in Island Grove out at the point, and it commemorates the abolitionist speakers who gathered there. And it was put up there quite quietly and anonymously by Moses Arnold, who served in the Civil War and was wounded and came back and started a shoe factory. The Arnold Shoe Factory is the stone factory at Arnold Park near the North Abington Depot restaurant. So he placed that there, remembering going to abolitionist meetings with his father. And he remembered where they were. And the stone placement, we're told, it was exactly where the speaker's stand was during that time. So out of that movement, now we are revisiting that site and recreating what it spawned, basically, when you come right down to it. So that's kind of exciting that we can do that. But it's also history coming full circle. And I like that aspect of it too. It teaches and we learn from that as well. This year, I'm understanding that what we're expecting, what we're hosting is bigger because I gather it's a regional recognized, perhaps sponsored group. And what should we expect?
Well, last year was kind of the regional group kind of feeling out the ground and seeing what's here.
How it worked. Yeah.
So we kind of worked out the kinks from last year.
Oh, we think we did. We'll find out.
On our end,
Okay.
we've done.
Oh, thank you.
And we've decided, we're going to be in the field by the swimming hole, and that will be pretty much the battlefield.
The lower field.
Yeah.
Okay.
As of now, we're expecting more military units on the federal side. I have not heard from the Confederate side yet, but we're hoping to choreograph it a lot better and have a little more involvement, have more people there. So there'll be more drill, more chances for people to actually interact with soldiers and equipment. And see what's going to go on.
Now, last year we actually had camping going on down in what I'll call the lower part of the grove,
Yeah.
the lower field. But even last year there was whispering about, gee, would really think we should be doing our reenactment there
Yes.
and not parking cars there and not camping there, but keep the camping up on the hill.
Yeah, there's going to be no parking in
Okay.
the grove at all this
Okay.
year. We've made that clear.
Okay, that's fine. Which, as a community, we have to scramble a little bit and arrange for parking and transportation as well. So the Abington Celebrates committee is getting together to help work on that, and we'll be working with them as well to figure out what the needs are and how that all interacts. So that's part of the planning process between now and June 10th, 11th, and 12th. Not much time, but we've done this before in one sense or another. So we like to think we can pull it off again. So that's a good thing from it. Any other expectations this year that would be different? I think, Judy, did you tell me we were going to see some horses this year?
I did hear yesterday.
Just yesterday we
Yeah,
heard. Okay. Okay, that's,
We should expect horses.
we had them a few years ago, but last year we were still, in terms of doing anything outdoors with Abington Celebrate, still in COVID recovery mode. And then, of course, things got worse again. But we were originally going to do fireworks that weekend and couldn't. So our focus really was the reenactments going on. And they were scrambling to kind of get back into it too. But it came off well, I think, last year. And indeed, I think showed people of the organizations what could be done here in Abington and how effective it could be and what a great location it was. So we're building on that. We're building on that sort of reputation and everything else that goes on. But anyway, I've been babbling on a bit up here, but I'm thinking there might be questions in the audience for Rob or for Mike or Judy or me or whatever. So, Mr. Ripley, believe it or not.
Was there ever any evidence that some of the soldiers coming back for nostalgic reasons wanted to camp there, and that there might be evidence of the fact that groups of them did hang out at the Grove and, after the Civil War was over?
I remember there were like welcoming banquets and ceremonies, but I'm not aware of any subsequent encampments at the Grove before we started doing them, which would be, 300 year, the 300th anniversary, so 2012. Rob, do you know
I
anything
think
else?
if anybody was coming back, they would probably be down by Arnold Park where the muster fields were.
Indeed, muster
because
fields.
that's where everybody was tented up and training, was down in that area. Island Grove was really known for its abolitionist movement. So,
An amusement park.
and amusement park later on. Yeah.
It was a lot of things. But no, I wasn't aware of anything at the Grove.
And I have a question for you. Was it your great-great-grandfather that was at Andersonville?
It was a friend's great-great-grandfather. I can only trace my family military history back to Spanish-American War.
Because my great-great-grandfather, who was born in Abington, died in Andersonville.
Oh,
And he was in the 32nd Mass, which was combined with the 22nd Mass
yes.
in May of 64. And he was captured June 1st at Bethesda Church. So when he went to Andersonville, he only survived till the end of July. And I have, end of August, I have a listing of all of those that died at Andersonville, and I have it by company, regiment, and corps. So if you give me the name of this person,
Well, my friend's last name was Adams. I
Adams,
don't know if his...
Fairly common.
I don't recall what his great-great-grandfather's name would have
did he
been.
survive
No,
Andersonville?
no.
No, okay.
Now, Jeffrey Leonard Ripley, by the way, you belong to a different Civil War group, as I recall, because I think I lectured to your group once.
Down in East Bridgewater.
Okay, and that group is?
What was it called? They had a couple of regiments from there, the 29th and the 31st.
Okay.
It's the round table, right?
It's the Civil War Roundtable. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Because as I said, I know I gave your group a tour of Island Grove one day.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And I've researched my great-great-grandfather from living in Abington to going to Hingham to going to Cohasset and enlisting there and training at Fort Warren and then, his 4 years in the war.
Is this mom's side or dad's side?
My father's side.
Father's side. Okay. Absolutely. Excellent. Rob?
Yeah, a couple things. On the family side, I mentioned the monument down in Whitman because my great-great-grandfather was one who formed up there. And, like Mike said, you find out talking about a family member who was into this, and that's what starts the ball rolling. Next thing you know, you're living out in the rain in a canvas tent. And
Wearing wool.
yeah, wearing wool in the sun. But he was with the Mass Fourth, and he was in the first battle of Big Bethel. And I tried to find him. My grandfather had a little bit of knowledge of it. He told me, and he was starting to, his mental capacities were starting to drop. And he says, yeah, your great-great-grandfather was a Civil War veteran, and I don't know where he is. And I searched for him for almost 8 years. And then I came in here, and I forget who I talked to, and says, well, you know something? An Eagle Scout just finished their whole thing on Mount Vernon. Let's check the map and see what he's got. Sure enough, he's 1/8 of a mile from my house.
In Abington.
And he's buried down here at Mount Vernon. And it's John W. Curtis. And
Oh, the Curtis family, of course.
My great-great-grandfather is buried at Andersonville.
Okay.
And we found his grave.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
But there's a memorial stone in Cohasset.
Ah,
uh,
okay.
you know.
Lots of memorials. I mean, we have a bridge and an arch, so yeah, lots of memorials. But it's what they did.
one other thing. Reenactor, you start talking, I'll stop.
Uh-oh.
Stop after.
That's it.
I don't know if any of you have gone to see the candlelight walk that's on Saturday night at the camp. The best part of the day and the best part of reenacting for us is at the end of the day,
It's very special.
and it's really something to see because all the tents are lit with candles and the campfires are going, the music is going. It is absolutely the most incredible thing to watch. And in Island Grove in the woods, it's just phenomenal. And for the reenactors, it's kind of really realistic because their day starts Saturday morning at 9 o'clock, and you really don't stop. It's interaction with people. It's all day. It doesn't stop. It's all day. And then the battles, and then you stop, and then you go back to the public again. So at the end of the day, it's kind of like you've been a soldier back then and you've marched like your whole 10 or 15, 20 miles all day and you finally get to sit down and relax, and it's the most realistic thing that you will ever see in your life. If you're able to get in there and do the candlelight tour, go see it because it's really, really something to see. It's for me, that's the magic of, and then hanging out with all my friends and the people that you shot and,
People that you shot, yes.
It's a good time.
This is Saturday night.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a lot going on Saturday night in Abington on the 11th. I probably won't say much more about it because it's a secret. But yeah, the sky might light up a bit too. So anyway, and this year things are extending into Sunday. I understand that there'll also be a skirmish Sunday afternoon at 1. And normally you've broken camp by then, so camp will break after the 1 o'clock skirmish. Okay, so
1 o'clock both days.
1 o'clock both days. Thank you, Cinda.
I only have a question on Rockland, but I wonder.
You're allowed, Rockland or not.
I wonder how much area is that you're using. I mean, I've been in Island Grove with water, but I don't know where all this.
Okay, for if you're familiar with the Grove, there is a road in from Park Avenue
Right.
that is kind of at the head of an embankment.
I've seen that.
Okay. Everything to the north of that is typically devoted to the actual camping part. This year, my understanding of the layout, and everything down below it near the swimming hole,
Right.
there's a flat area from the swimming hole back towards Park Avenue, where the day camp is, where the cabin is,
Yep.
and that area, we're understanding, is going to be the focus of the skirmishes. Because in the past we've been using it for some camping and also for vehicle parking. But this year we're just saying no parking in the Grove, and that area, it's ideal because it's flat and it's open. And you won't find much flat and open at Island Grove. So it's a grove. So anyway, so that's
the area.
yeah.
It's grown. I mean, in years previous to last year, you know, it was kind of like in one area that we had the USSC and we had the troops. And now, as of last year, being under the umbrella of the New England Brigade and all of the additional people that came, you can basically walk through any part of the Grove and you're going to see the encampment.
Well, when it started, it was just the 22nd
Right.
and the USSC. Somebody said, hey, do you want to do this? And we said, sure, why not? We'd like to go out on the weekend.
There you go.
And then the following year we did it. We kind of invited our friends from the 35th Virginia to join us, and we'll run around the woods and burn some powder. And it kind of got a life of its own and got a little
Right.
bit bigger as we started inviting more groups. So a lot of people, yeah, they see you in the woods taking pot shots, but a lot of people like to see the tactics of the day. They like to see somebody moving a column of men the way they would have moved them or set them up in line of battle.
And indeed, this last year was the first time we really
Yeah.
took that type of a venture by using the bridge.
Yes.
So that was something new for us, and I expect we'll see more of that with an interpreter perhaps explaining to the visitors what they're seeing, which is useful. It's not just a mystery of what are these guys doing. There's someone there telling you what they're doing. So that's a useful facet of what they do. They've understood that they're not just doing it for them. They're doing it for everyone to see and understand what they're seeing. So,
And please, when you come and visit, we really want people to come and spend time in camp and find out what it's like, you know, and ask the questions and see everything, you know, get a real taste of it.
and leave your dogs at home.
The dogs at home. And it's fun. I mean, we get like questions, you know, of all types. Anything, they'll get questions about the tents and the equipment they use, and then we have families that are in there with babies, and we've actually had people say, "Is that a real baby? Is that real food you're
Is
using?
that a real fire?
Is that a
Is that a
real
real
fire?"
fire?
It's amazing, you know. But yeah, everything is real, you know, and so we want you to come and see that, and you know, and enjoy it.
It's
and ask
amazing how many
questions.
people have questions. Just they'll see a soldier in uniform standing there with his leather gear, and they're looking at everything. And you have to invite people. Is there anything I can help you with? So they don't understand that this musket is not a bullet. This is something you have to pour powder. You have to reach in your cartridge box until you actually go through the steps. Wow, that's how that worked?
It's not a large magazine.
Yeah, it's not a
weapon.
large,
Okay.
it's not a 30-round magazine.
There you go. A little different approach. Yes.
Do you actually spend the whole night there?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. We sometimes have security concerns. We've had people show up on the grounds who shouldn't have been there. But the police have been, the whole town, between the DPW and the police and the fire department, they're very welcoming to all of this. And Abington Celebrates is always grateful to partner with them because they have an interest in what we're doing, and they want to also show the town off in the best light, and they cooperate quite nicely. But
Camp-
yes, overnight is an experience.
Camp does close at 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
You know, and it's been a full day. And Saturday night, camp does close at 9 o'clock. And we ask that people do respect that because these guys need to, you know, rest up and be ready for the next morning. And I have to say that, you know, their personal belongings, like he was talking about, the cost of one coat, never mind the hat, the leathers, and everything else. You know, so it's important that they can have that time and not be worried about in the dark, you know, people coming and going. So that is, you know, something that I do ask, is that respect that camp closes at 9 o'clock. We'd love to see you in the morning. We'd love to see you all day. 7 to 9 at night, you know, is the candlelight. Love to have you there. But, you know.
Excellent.
So you spend the night there. Do you sleep on your blow-up mattresses?
Nope,
or
just the way
No.
they would have done it.
No,
you stay
I
active?
found that out on my first one. I have a big inflatable thing, and it's like all of a sudden I was I'm blowing this thing up, and everybody went, "Put it away, O'Brien."
Not allowed.
Nope, we just rolled the gum blanket and the wool blanket out, and that's it. Just what they were issued.
And it's a learning experience too. I mean, you know, even myself, like when Rob started, you know, I would make goodies or food, and I made sure it was period correct because he said it had to be period correct. Everything is, you know, and I would go and make sure, you know, he had water and hide it under the cot or whatever, because everything is period correct, but they are
They have
human beings.
practicalities.
There are certain things you have to have.
Practicalities, yes.
But the very first time I brought cookies, I was like looking it up. And I thought, oh, I'm so proud of myself. I looked this up, and I can bring ginger snaps, because that's a period correct. Well, I rolled them in sugar, and the very first thing I heard, ooh, you must be one of those rich folks from town, because sugar was something that was, very
extra special.
Yeah. So it is. It's a learning experience every year, and every time they go out, there's still, after doing it for years, it's still a learning experience.
Well, when I was down at Gettysburg, that was the first time I ever had actual salt pork.
I use it in my baked beans, but I wouldn't eat it otherwise.
Oh no, it was that's fatback pork.
Okay.
Salt pork is something different. It's popular out in the Midwest.
Okay.
It's usually found with a lot of heavy German populations.
Okay.
It's also the most disgusting piece of meat.
But it tasted good because you were hungry? No, it still didn't taste good.
Not. It was just something to try to say, been there, done that, not going there again.
And I'm sure soldiers back then would have said that too, so there you go. Entirely possible.
Yeah, what they were issued for rations was...
Speaking of issuing for rations, before I turn you loose in the back room for refreshments, are there any last questions? And these folks aren't going to disappear right away. You can, if you're shy about asking the questions now, I think they're hanging around for a bit and can answer them. But any more questions while we're sitting here? Okay, you guys are good. One exercise I always do, will the Historical Society members of Old Abington please raise their hands? Look around you to see who isn't raising their hand and make sure you say hi and make them feel welcome. Membership in the society is a total of $12 a year or $75 for lifetime membership, so we encourage your participation. We're going to start meeting soon to plan next year's programs for the fall semester and the spring semester. I have some new ideas this year. One of them I'm very excited about is one of our programs each year I want to feature a historic home in Abington, Rockland, or Whitman. People are curious about what homes look like. They live in homes. They want to understand what historic homes are like, how it's different. And gee, I always wanted to see the inside of that, but you really couldn't go up and knock on the door. We'll do that. We'll go up and knock on the door, and we'll give a visual tour and a history of what it is you're looking at. We're blessed that the towns have historic inventories that list the historic buildings in each town, and we're going to play off of those. If we're good, we'll do like Abington one year and Rockland and Whitman, but who knows? A lot of it's going to have to do with the cooperation of homeowners as well. But we really do try to do each year certain themed things, and this is something we've not done before, and yet I think it's a point of great interest to a lot of people. So we'll be starting that this coming year. But you're welcome to chime in with any ideas you have of programs. After our DAR program last month, I had a phone call from a town historian, actually part of the Park Service, who didn't think they had maybe covered enough of women in the Revolution. And she said, Doug, I'm interested in doing a program on that. And I said, great, have at it. She's a professional, and she's a reenactor herself of having done the Adamses in Quincy and a few other historic characters. So she knows her game. So that's probably going to be a program that we'll do as well. But this is how our programs evolve, is people want to hear something. People come to us and say, may I do something? Can you tell me about, I want to know more about. And those are the programs we want to produce. Those are the conversations we want to have, because obviously if you're interested and you're participating, we're growing, we're doing our job. So just kind of keep that in mind. I can't end without noting that there's a lot of changes in the building. Marie Layler is our relatively new chair of the Board of Trustees of the Dyer Trustees. And she was sitting back in a corner over there, if she hasn't hit. She's over there. Okay. We didn't think we were going to be able to use the Murphy room out back for refreshments like we normally do, because they just came in and painted the ceilings and the walls. But miraculously, they finished. And so we are using the room. And you people are the first to see it with a newly painted ceiling and walls. As a result of not planning it, we're not offering hot coffee and tea today, but we have other refreshments out there. And we hope you will join us back there and talk more amongst yourselves, have questions, and enjoy yourselves. And plan on coming back to us in the fall and join in. I mean, we always welcome ideas. We welcome warm bodies to help us do what we do. And we're on cable, we're on YouTube, and it all works out well. So thank you for being here today. Thank you for participating in today's conversation. And we welcome you back again, and catch us on cable and catch us on YouTube. So thank you all, and let's retire to the back room for some refreshments.